Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Glen Tyler TV. It's not a podcast. I make it clear that this is not a podcast. This is a web show. This is a talk show, but it will be on podcast platforms, so I guess you can call it what you want. Well, folks, listening out there, specifically my mother, who's probably the only one listening so far. Maybe your mother will listen to this one, actually. Yeah, we have a friend today, folks. Real quick before I introduce our guest, I just want to say, I was just telling him, one of the reasons I started this podcast is because, not a podcast, is because there's so many funny people here in New York City. Everyone's so busy doing shows, doing mics, doing their day jobs, and we never really get time to chat and get to know each other too well. So I just want to introduce these super funny people to the world, to my mom, and have great conversations with them. So today, we have our first official guest live in studio in New York City. Folks, this is David Carlone, a stand-up comedian, a New Yorker, and veteran of the U.S. Army. David, how's it going, my friend?
Good, Glenn. How you doing, man? I appreciate you having me on. I'm honored
Yes.
to be here.
Thank you so much. David, we met, I want to say, close to a year ago.
Yeah,
That's right.
Stand. Yep.
That's right. And the reason I remember that, I'll never forget, is because we were sitting kind of, I feel like we were sitting kind of awkwardly like the comedians do before the show. We don't really know each other. We're all trying to introduce ourselves to one another. I specifically remember like 3 other people that were on that bill, really nice people, great people. And I remember talking to you a little bit. I connected with you on LinkedIn immediately.
That's right. Yes. I was very desperate for a job, and you talked about your job, and I was like, oh, all right, somebody who can help me out with getting a job.
What's so funny is I didn't help you at all.
You got me an interview. I made to the second round of interviews.
Right, I did get you an interview because I was in the middle of leaving one job to go to another.
Yeah.
And I actually went back to my old job that I left in the past. I have commitment issues. But I remember talking to you. We exchanged LinkedIn's, so professional in the comedy world. And then afterwards, a sweet lady came up to me and she said, besides, she was like talking about the show. She was in the audience. She came up to me. She said, you know, you were one of my favorites up there besides my son. And I said, who's your son? She was like, David. And I was like, oh, he is so great. I was like, yeah. And she was like, you know him? I was like, yeah, I just met him literally, but I think we're best friends. So your mom was very sweet, very supportive. And I remember you mentioning that she comes to a lot of your shows.
She does. She has a lot of free time, and she's a very big supporter, which I'm very grateful for. So yeah, she's been coming to a lot of my shows ever since I started comedy. She comes when she can, you know. So yeah, big fan, and she's like my biggest critic too. I'll get on stage. She was like, I didn't like the way you did it this time, this joke or something like that. You should try it this way or something. So
really,
all right. Yeah, she's my trying to be my manager, I guess.
Yeah. Well, does it work? Does her advice work? Has she given you some good tags, some good?
Yeah. Sometimes, but she means well. She just wants me to do well up there. So yeah, she's a very, very big supporter.
Yeah. So my parents are very big supporters as well. They live in Ohio. I'm here in New York, but they try to watch. They've even watched videos of me bombing, which is most of my comedy videos. But I will say one thing, because I've noticed your sets are pretty clean, right? For the most part, you work pretty clean, which I know in New York is, you know, some people do, some people don't. Everyone's different. But for me, since I know my mom's going to watch, I think some of my riskier jokes that I have, I'm a little even more scared to do because I know my mom will see it. Does that ever creep into your mind, or is she pretty chill, or?
Yeah, I think it's, I think when I first started out, I was kind of experimenting with different jokes, trying to find my voice and stuff like that. So I definitely wasn't always like clean, but I think it's just the way like the jokes I think of work that they're primarily, in that realm of clean or whatever. But yeah, that is in the back of my mind too. Like, oh, my mom's going to watch this or something, but I don't let it hinder me. If I think it's something funny, I'm going to say it, or go for it or try it out at least at an open mic or something.
Yeah.
But she never was like, I'm not going to support you if you're not a clean comedian. She was never like that. It was just always, that's just I guess my sense of humor and how it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah. It's just so funny because I've so many different comedians have different styles. And I've seen, I have one friend, really good friend of mine. She's hilarious. Her parents were in town once and her whole set was the dirtiest set I've ever heard in my life. And then we went to dinner with her parents and some friends and I saw her dad there and he was he was having a good time, but you could kind of tell. It's
Yeah,
like, my
yeah.
daughter just said all that on stage, but so supportive. So everyone's different. But yeah, man, I think I just want to say, I've heard David's sets a few times. We've been on a few shows together. Yeah, David's very funny. He's very talented. So real quick, I wanted to give you a minute to plug. Can you give your social medias real fast?
Yeah, my Instagram is David_Carlone. That's Carlone. That's my Instagram. That's where I primarily post, all of my sets or when upcoming shows and stuff like that. And then I usually post the full sets on my YouTube channel, which is Forever Carlone, which I made a long time ago. There was a meme face. It was like the rage face. It's like a giant head crying, and it was Forever Alone. And then I just made it Forever Carlone. I made it stylized like Forever Alone with the C and the R very lowercase. So anyway. That's my YouTube channel. So yeah, I post my full sets on YouTube, and then my Instagram, David_Carlone. So appreciate the plug.
Amazing. And you do sketch comedy as well. Am I right about that? I thought I saw some videos maybe you posted, or you and is it Kyle?
Yeah, my buddy Kyle Becker, another great comedian who I've known for a long time. We started doing sketches in like high school, college time, and then he has his own kind of like sketch group that he does too. So I like doing sketches. I haven't done one in a while, but I do improv at Second City. So doing that. But yeah, I love doing sketches. Just haven't done any in a while. It's like we come up with the ideas. We're always sending each other like, hey, I got an idea for a sketch. They're like, hey, it's got legs. And then we kind of just sit on it for a while. So we got to execute soon.
Yeah.
It's just tougher when you get older and everyone's got their own lives. It's like, hey, let's go. Just getting everybody in one place to film is like impossible.
I hear you, man. I love sketch comedy, and that was my first love of comedy in college. And we did a sketch comedy show called Cheap Thrills, and it was so much fun. And I was the director. I put together like a team of writers. It was so much fun. But all we had was time, and we lived on campus. Now, one of the reasons I even got into stand-up was because I was like, I don't have anyone else that'll be funny with me. It's like it's hard to get people together. It's so much easier. Like, well, it's not easy. I mean, stand-up's not easy, but physically, it's easier to take yourself to the comedy club, stand up there, humiliate yourself, or do great, and then leave, and then no one else knows about it. So yeah, that's why I don't invite my friends to shows, because I don't want if when I bomb, I don't have to see those people again.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to know you a little bit real quick. The origin story, the superhero that you are, David Carlone, which I recently learned is Italian, right?
Yes, we are. Mike Birbiglia does a joke. He says he's Olive Garden Italian, which I love because that kind of describes my family. It's like we're Italian, but we're also like, we don't speak it. We don't really like. I'm the first person in my immediate family to go back to Italy. I went for 4 days. I went to Italy, and it was beautiful. I loved it. But I was like, it's not like I have family there, or I know how to speak the language. I know Mi chiamo Davide ho fame, which means my name is David, I'm hungry. And that took me very far in Italy.
That's a good one to have.
Yep.
That's a good one to have.
I was like, I'll never forget there.
I know Danza fanciulla gentile, oso mio, vaga luna che in argenti. I had to sing Italian art songs in college, so I don't know what I just said, but I know it's Italian.
Sounds like Bach.
Yeah, exactly. But the whole time you were in Italy, you were like, man, I wish I was like, you're eating their food there, right? And you were probably like, I wish I was at Times Square Olive Garden.
Exactly. I was like, hey, the Italians, your food's good, but you don't have endless breadsticks. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, you guys got to figure it out here.
And you're a veteran, so you were like, Italian's great, but the best Italian is American Italian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Nice little spaghetti meatball MRE. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Packed with preservatives.
Nice. Okay, so tell me about your upbringing a little bit. You're from Long Island. That's where you grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just kind of like, how were you as a kid? What was life like for David Carlone?
Man, well, I guess in terms of like stand-up and comedy to connect it, but I was very fat as a kid. I was very overweight as a kid, so I was picked on a lot. And
little tubs? They call you little tubs? What'd they call you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very, very large individual. So I was picked on a lot, made fun of, and it just was kind of the classic, story of like, hey, develop your sense of humor, make fun, make jokes first so they can't make fun of you kind of thing. So yeah, I was always like kind of a class clown growing up, and always doing whatever I could to get a laugh. At home too, I was just kind of being the comedic relief at home. And then when I was connecting to comedy, when I was 12 years old, I remember I had like, I don't know, a bad day at school or whatever, and I was like, I'm going to be a comedian. And I looked online. I was like comedy clubs in New York, and the first thing that popped up was the comic strip with a picture of Jerry Seinfeld and I think it was Chris Rock. Those were two pictures that came up. So I called the comedy club. I was 12. I was called. And I was like, hey, I want to do stand-up comedy. And this woman, Gladys, answers. So anybody listening who's been to comic strip knows, Gladys.
Still there.
She's still there. Yep. So I called to perform. She told me, hey, come Friday night at whatever time it was. So my whole family went. I was 12. My dad, my mom, my sister, my brother, they all came and watched me do a 5-minute open mic when I was 12 at the comic strip. And that's kind of what started it all, or started my love of stand-up. And I did it a couple of times when I was a kid because obviously my parents had to take me to the city. So yeah, that's how I got started into stand-up when I was a kid.
12 years old, man. What was your material about? Do you remember?
I remember,
geez, Miss Williams is a real pain in English.
One of my jokes was about trick cereal commercials and how I thought they were bad because they were encouraging kids to be cruel to animals, because the whole trick cereal thing is like, hey, silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. And then it's like, hey, just give the rabbit the food, man. Like, oh, I had a whole, I don't know. It did well. I guess maybe it was because it was coming out of a 12-year-old's mouth. Maybe that's why it was funny. I would definitely not do that joke now. But I guess as a kid, it was funny to watch a kid say that. But
that's a great sketch, though, man. I can just see that being a sketch.
Yeah.
Like turned into like a dark humor sketch where they just like,
rabbit gets revenge or something. Just I'm getting that cereal.
Yeah. Or
I'm leaving here with something.
Yeah. They're like torturing him in a dungeon. Like, this isn't for you, rabbit.
Yeah.
Just freaking out. Yeah. You can have that. That's free.
Yeah, exactly. That's free. Hey, trick cereal. There you go. There's your new promotional ads.
So you were the class clown.
Yeah. Yeah, that was growing up. I mean, great childhood. Very close to my siblings, so we had a lot of fun together.
How many siblings do you have?
Older sister, younger brother, so I'm in the middle.
Okay.
So,
gotcha.
Yeah, just two siblings. And yeah, I grew up. So my dad is a golf course superintendent. He's actually retiring this year. This is last year. He's been a golf course superintendent for 43 years.
Wow. Congrats. What does that mean?
Yeah. What's that?
I know what golf is, and I know what superintendent is in school, but what is a golf superintendent?
So he's responsible for the entire maintenance of the course. He's the entire maintenance, like making sure everything's taken care of, the beautification of the course, whatever you want to call it. He's in charge of all of that. So making sure it is at peak playing conditions. Oh. It's a very stressful job, and he's very good at it. He's like a scientist out there. He knows all the chemicals to spray to kill insects that are eating the grass but not kill the grass, and when to spray chemicals depending on like time of year and stuff like that. He's a genius out there. So he's he's an artist too. So yeah, he's been doing that for 43 years. And so anyway, growing up, we grew up on a golf course, and which was a great upbringing. I don't know how, I didn't grow up in a neighborhood. Part of the gig was we lived on the course. So the golf course.
On the course.
Yeah. My backyard was the 8th hole. So in the summers, wake up and see people playing golf outside. And I wish I could say I'm a great player. It's kind of that people would say, "Oh, you grew up on a golf course. You should be professional by now." And I'm like, I also had a basketball hoop. I'm not in the NBA. It's
That's so fair.
Yeah, so fair. I was like, I think golf you can definitely practice and get good at, but you definitely have to.
Can't. No, you can't. I practice it all the time.
You hit those shots that keep you coming back.
You don't get better at golf. Yeah. You hit those shots that keep you coming back and think, I might have something here. And then 30 more strokes, and you're like, dude, I'm not even touching the ball right. Like, it's just like, so I'm curious if it was in your backyard. Okay, I always wonder this, because when I go golfing, well, I really tag along. My friends are golfing. I'm just swinging a metal rod at grass. But when we go golfing and there's the houses right by the holes, like, so that's what you guys lived on, right? How many golf balls are flying at your house? Or like, I just imagine that's dangerous. You're like in a war zone, because it's
luckily a lot of trees, like a lot of trees that they have up. So we're pretty protected. And the way the course is set up, no one's aiming at our house. We're pretty safe. But yeah, there's tons of times you'll go outside and there's just be golf balls in the backyard. Obviously, someone shanked a couple shots. And
David, I wouldn't aim for your house, but I would hit your house. I'm just like,
I always the rule of thumb is aim for what you don't want to hit, because then you won't hit it. Like aim for the tree, I won't hit it. So, but I haven't had to pay for golf balls in a long time because I just find the ones that people miss hit. So
that's so true. That's so true. Me and my buddy Brandon back in Ohio, and Ben, we'll just go golfing, and they'll be like, we'll find these little mountains or like these little, not mountains, the opposite. What's the one that goes in? A hole.
Yeah.
Like a little ditch hole, and there's like a bunch of golf balls that people just ditched, and we just take all of them. So I haven't paid for golf balls in years, but I have donated a ton, and this is so crazy. Okay, this is so crazy. I'm literally looking across the street from me, and someone just popped their head above the roof on this apartment building. So I'm going to keep an eye on that because he had a black hoodie on, and we can cut this part. I'm just letting you know, if I get distracted, I don't know if there's a sniper up there. I could use a Army veteran right now, but I'm being dead serious, David. The scariest thing just happened because a guy poked his head up there. We're going to continue. We're going to continue.
Man, things just got real.
Yeah. I mean, but it could just be a guy living there. Maybe it's all right. Sorry, we'll cut that part.
Hopefully he's just maybe he left his phone charger up there. He's going to get it.
Yeah, on the roof. Maybe he heard us talking about golfing, and he's like, stop it right now. Stop it right now. I'm good at golf. I know how to golf. Anyway, so you lived on a golf course. You were the class clown. You were, I'm curious because you're in great shape now, you know?
Oh, thank you.
You know, not to get weird. I'm not saying that I'm attracted to you, but you're a good-looking guy. You're a good-looking guy. You're in good shape. You were in the military. Thank you. Appreciate it. My mom says the same. But when were you not so
fat?
Yeah.
When
did that change? Ozempic?
I think no. Luckily not. I think it was like age 15 or 16.
Okay, you just stopped eating the Trick cereal.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, all right, rabbit. I was trying to be nice to rabbit.
It was the protest. I was
like, yeah.
PETA really got to you.
Yep. But I think it was like 15 or 16. I literally just grew like a foot. And then I got like super thin. I just literally just stretched out. And like kind of over a summer, I guess it was just like puberty, delayed puberty, whatever it is. I grew. Right now I'm 6'2", and I just grew, got really thin, and then people were like, "Whoa, man, you're too thin now." I was like, "All right, I can't win here," you know?
Yeah.
But I got taller and thinned out, and then I got into weightlifting and powerlifting, and I started like on the side, like started competing and stuff like that. So I got really big into going to the gym, and that became kind of like an outlet for me. And so it was kind of a combination of those things. I just got that summer growth spurt that was very grateful for.
Still waiting on mine.
What's that?
Still waiting on mine.
It could happen. You never know.
Never know. I'm hoping for a growth spurt, and then maybe on the head, a hair growth spurt. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. I have my phone. I want to see if I can enter this studio from the Riverside app and show you this man.
Yeah.
Across the street. Let's see if this works real quick. And this is crazy. And he walked away. I just want to put a camera on this guy, and we can keep an eye on him.
This is now it's becoming a surveillance show.
Okay. So there was a man. Let's see if it lets me do this. On that roof. He's right there. He's gone. Ladies and gentlemen, Mom, that's what I was scared of for a second. So anyway, crazy stuff. We're still recording. That worked. I think it worked.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Scared him away.
He just keeps popping up. But so when you're going through all this stuff, getting taller, how did that, when did the change come? And you're like, I don't want to be a comedian. I want to be a veteran.
That change. Yeah. So when I was, okay, so just kind of quick synopsis. So after high school, I went to college. I went to community college first, saved money, and then I ended up going to Hofstra University on Long Island and majored in film production. And again, kind of just falling back into comedy and stuff. Made my first short film, which is a comedy film. Played in festivals in New York, and I was really trying to make my way into film while I was doing stand-up. I was doing stand-up a lot. And probably around age 26, my brother went to West Point, and one of the jokes I used to do was everyone would always confuse me for him. So they'd come up to me like, "Hey, how's West Point?" I'm like, "No, it's not me. That's my brother." And then I would do jokes like people "Oh, I didn't know that your family had another son," and it would be like that. I didn't know I even existed. So anyway, when I was 26, I was working at a gym. I was a personal trainer at a gym. I just kind of felt like I wasn't doing anything. I was doing stand-up, but it wasn't, it was just open mics and a couple of shows here and there, but not anything that I was doing anything substantial with. It was still fun. I enjoyed it. I loved it. It was what I was still pursuing. I was like, all right, while I'm young, kind of want to try something new, take a big life shift, and I wanted to get more material. So I was like, all right, I'm going to join the Army.
Great idea.
So yeah, so when I was 26, I like kind of made that choice and went to a recruiter. I did something called Officer Candidate School. So because I had a college degree, I was able to do that. And yeah, I left for basic training the day before my 28th birthday. My first day of basic training was my birthday, so it was really funny. You go through like different, you could go like different, I guess kiosks or whatever, and they always ask you like name, date of birth, all that stuff. And I'm like, I said my birthday, and they do a double take, and they're like, oh, horrible way to spend your birthday. And I'm like, nah, it's all right. I'm 28, so it's all right. I joined much later in life, so everyone was calling me like an old man and stuff, and I'm like, it's fine. You know, on the outside world, I'd be young, but here I'm like old. So
yeah, well,
yeah,
I guess I guess that's always a great idea. If you want more material, enroll in the U.S. military, because nothing's funnier than some World War III content.
That's especially when the war can be streamed on TikTok and stuff.
Oh yeah, literally. You're like, hey guys, we're live here in Afghanistan. You know, it's just like,
no, we're not far off from that.
Did you go anywhere? Were you ever deployed anywhere?
I went to Romania, so it was a deployment rotation.
Okay.
There was all this argument over what we were calling it, because a deployment, like when you think of deployment, most people now are thinking like Afghanistan, Iraq, which are combat deployments. Those are like, those are real deployments.
Right.
My deployment, it was a rotation. So we were there just to have a presence in Romania. So I was in Europe for 9 months, and I was in Romania for 7.5, and Germany for 1.5 months. We went to training in Germany towards the end of our time there. So yeah, it was cool. So
I know it's obviously it's a very serious thing, and I want to say thank you for your service. Is there anything, I mean, just, I assume with a bunch of guys, you become good friends, brothers, like very strong relationships, right? Like being in the military. Right. But was there anything funny that you ever like that you could put in a stand-up bit that happened? Like anything, or was there a little, or was it just always like, we're here to protect the country?
Dude, so the entire thing is hilarious. That's the funny thing is, like, I mean, there were definitely times where it's like very serious and you're like, okay, I can't joke around and stuff.
Yeah.
But there are so many things. Like, I could talk here for hours about some of the funny things that have happened. For example, in basic training, well, first I went through basic training during COVID. And so there was a whole, tons of stories about how things didn't make sense. And like, they would make us stand 6 feet apart outside. And then when we went inside, they'd make us stand shoulder to shoulder. And I'm like, this makes no sense at all. Yeah. But there was, at night, they would give us calcium bars.
Okay.
And, they're packed with a ton of you look at the nutrition facts and it's just got maybe they're healthy. I don't know, but they were calcium bars to make sure we're getting our calcium.
Okay.
But they would give them to us by hurling them at us. So like they would throw, like one girl had like a golf ball sized welt on her forehead from getting hit with them. So I would always, and the funny thing too was like my drill sergeants and stuff, most of them I was older than. So it was like funny that to me, it's like, all right, on the outside, like I'm all, not that age matters, but I'm like, all right, we're like the same age, man.
Sure.
And I would always jump in front and stick my chest out, and I would do the Happy Gilmore, like 364 more days till next year's hockey tryouts, and they would just peg me with calcium bars. And then they tasted really good. So like people do like random funny things to get somebody else. You're only allowed one, so to get more calcium bars. Like, remember we had to make these ant mounds like in our area. So one person was like, hey, if you stick your hand on that ant mound for 20 seconds, I'll give you my calcium bar. And everyone's there like, okay, I'll do it. So you see people like just getting bit by red ants for a calcium bar. So stupid stuff like that that's kept us entertained.
Yeah. That is amazing. So it was fun. You kept it fun. I mean, you're willing to put your life on the line at any point for the country, which is very admirable, I believe. And so you got to make it fun, until that time comes, right?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta looking for the humor and stuff. And like my job, that was all the other thing. Like, there's the military. I feel like that's another joke that I have. Like some people like tell them in the military and they think my every day is like storming the beaches of Normandy. They're like, oh man, you must be doing crazy stuff all the time. I'm like, no, I worked an office job. I was not combat arms. I was a signal officer. So like I was kind of like on the nerdy side.
Is that like the baseball coach or like steal second,
What's that?
Is that when you say signal coach, is it like a third base coach in baseball where he's like signaling, like,
I was a signal officer. So
A signal officer. Okay.
Yeah, so basically I had soldiers who, like, my job was I managed soldiers, and they were all like super good at, like, computers and, satellites and radios and stuff. But I was just kind of like a middleman, like making sure, like, my, commander would tell me, hey, I need this done. And then I would tell my guys, like, hey, we need to do this. And then they would get it done. They were the geniuses. But yeah, we were in charge of getting the Wi-Fi, so we were,
Okay.
it was fun though, because my soldiers were hilarious. We had a good time. And hopefully, I was a good officer for them. I think I did my best job.
You know what? Getting Wi-Fi with Spectrum, especially, I would say just as difficult as hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, hey, you need to communicate out there. Without us, you can't communicate.
David, I really want to get this on the podcast. What are you wearing?
Oh, this is my Brontosaurus sweatshirt from the Science Museum of Minnesota. So for any Stranger Things fans, this is. I'm a big Stranger Things fan, and this is one of the sweatshirts that Dustin wears in Stranger Things. And yeah, I saw it, and I was like, I need that sweatshirt. So I bought it. And yeah, it's one of my favorite sweatshirts. It's very, purple. It's very bright purple, but that's what I like about it.
I love it. First, one of the first things I saw this morning was a Brontosaurus. So, it's amazing. Definitely go get one. You can get it at davidcarlonebrontosaurus.com.
Yes, that is not real website, but yes, you can still go there.
Real. Well, real quick, I know we're getting to know you, but I want to go back to some comedy stuff real quick.
Yeah.
With comedy, I mean, you started at 12. It's pretty incredible. Were there any big comedians that, and I know you saw Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock on kind of the pictures, but was there any comedian specifically, or a few comedians, or a show or something that really inspired you growing up that was like, I love comedy, stand up is what I want to do? Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yes, I think before I even got into watching just straight stand up, it was Chris Farley sketches on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I think also because I was really heavy as a kid, I identify with Chris Farley. I was like, oh man, he's a guy who's I feel like is the same kind of person to me, making people laugh. So love Chris Farley. His movies too, like Beverly Hills Ninja as a kid.
Yes.
I don't know if
oh my gosh.
That was my sick movie. That was when I was homesick from school. That movie, I would just watch it over and over again. So yeah, Chris Farley, and then Jim Carrey also when I was very young. So Dumb and Dumber. I think Dumb and Dumber was probably the first comedy movie I can remember seeing.
What's the soup du jour?
That sounds good.
Yeah, I'll have that.
That's the day. That sounds good.
Dude, I can quote that whole movie.
Dumber,
yeah.
The Mask, Ace Ventura. I was always quoting those movies as a kid. So those two were probably the earliest, and then as I got older, I started, my first comedy CD I got was Brian Regan.
Love him.
Love Brian Regan. I would just listen to that on repeat. And then my mom, I don't know if she got it for me or something, I got Jerry Seinfeld's DVD. It was his special, I'm telling you for the last time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then the first comedy show I ever saw, I saw Jim Gaffigan when I was 13 or 14. I went and saw Jim Gaffigan. He was here on Long Island. Yeah, so a bunch of guys like that. So and then I got into Mike Birbiglia, obviously Dave Chappelle when Chappelle's show came out, and then I started listening to Dave Chappelle. His special, Killing Him Softly, is probably my favorite stand-up special of all time.
So good.
Yeah. So
it's crazy that a few of the people you mentioned, well, really just Jim Gaffigan, I've run into him 3 times on the subway. He's always in the city. Yeah, it's just, and he's someone I got into later because I lived in Indiana for a while and everyone loves him there because he's a big Indiana guy.
Yeah.
But so funny, dude. And Brian Regan, he has a joke. I mean, a lot of his jokes are just timeless. And I love his material because he doesn't really do a ton of social commentary. So his jokes can be used forever. If he never recorded something and put it out there and people didn't see it, I think he could have 3 hours of material for every decade and still be relevant. But he had one joke. I remember the first joke I heard of his was about him being playing Little League Baseball.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? And he's talking about
free snow cone.
Free snow cone. He's like, I was terrible at baseball. He's like, we'd lose the game, everyone's sad. I'm like, but are we gonna still get snow cones?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. If you play half game, you don't get a half snow cone. You get the full snow cone. Yeah, I'd rather play half game. Yeah, his delivery, his voices, it's very relatable too. Because I'm as a fat kid, I remember I didn't want to play sports. I was there for the food at the end of the game.
Yeah, same, man. They would have the parents would bring the snacks. I'd be so pissed if a mom that was on snack duty didn't bring the snacks.
Yeah,
that kid would get shunned the next game.
He has another joke from his. It's a newer special. I mean, not newer. It's probably a couple of years old now, but. he does a joke about how he was sick and he had to call an ambulance for himself. And I was like, that's a genius joke, because he's just like, you know how awkward that is? I called 911. I'm like, can you come get me?
Dude.
Yeah, that's a great joke. Great bit.
Yeah, his stuff is timeless, I really think.
Yeah.
I think he is probably my number one comedic inspiration and my favorite comedian. And
Nice.
he's so under the radar, like as far as the mainstream goes. But
yeah, I know he's still doing shows. He's touring and stuff like that. He's doing well, which I'm happy for. You know, he's a really good comic.
Yeah. We'll get him on Glen Tyler TV one day.
He needs it. He needs to.
So I know we got a few more minutes, but I wanted to ask you this, just kind of connecting the military and the comedy thing. I mean, you did a lot of hard things in the military, I'm sure, basic training, like all that stuff through COVID. But like, what is harder, or like, I guess, I have it written down. Let me just read the question. Would you rather bomb a set in comedy, like, bomb like 6 minutes, 7 minutes set, or 10 minutes even? We'll say this. I'll make it harder, because bombing for 10 minutes is terrible, which I've done multiple times. Would you rather bomb a 10-minute set or do the entire basic training again?
Oof. That is tough.
And for people listening that don't know stand-up comedy, they're going to think, oh, that's easy, but they don't get it. So you can totally explain your answer.
Bombing is not fun. I think so. Going on a little bit of a tangent here. I was having this conversation with another comic, and we were talking about, like, if you haven't bombed, you're not like a real comic. Like, you have to bomb because you got to take chances.
That's all I do. I must be the realest comic then, because I've never gotten laughs.
I was like, I had a show last night. I didn't bomb, but I tried out a new joke. And so I did a joke that I know works first to kind of like warm up and be like, hey, I'm not, I want to open up with a brand new joke. But a joke that works, if the show is going well. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to take a risk and try this new joke. Did not hit. I mean, I got some giggles and stuff, but it was just like, all right, clearly fell flat. But I was like, all right, well, it's not a bad joke. It's just it needs some work. Every joke is kind of like chiseling, it's like chiseling a statue, Sometimes you just have the square and you just got to keep chiseling away at it. I mean, if bombing is set for, what'd you say, 5-6 minutes?
I said 10 now. 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Yeah, no, that's. I'd rather go through basic training again. I mean, I love stand-up, and you know what? I'd rather bomb a set at basic training. I'd rather bomb in front of. Yeah, exactly.
Because then it's just drop and give me 200,000 push-ups.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, bombing, dude, it's so... I have just recently not gotten over it. You never get over it. But it's like, I have recently shifted my mindset. I had a lot of time at home by myself. I had hip surgery, and so I wasn't able to like do stand-up for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would say this, but I was like, man, I would rather be up there kind of bombing a little bit than just be sitting here thinking about missing stand-up. And the reason I say that is because, like, in the past, bombing, which happens a lot, is especially as, like, I've only been doing comedy, like, on and off in the city for, like, 2.5 years. And so I think for me, like, bombing used to really get to me because I just want people to like me. And I would invite friends to these bringer shows before I understood the comedy structure in New York, so I would invite friends that think I'm funny. They come to my show. I'm not that funny yet. And I'm doing pretty bad on the show. And then it's awkward because we have to grab dinner afterwards. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, we know I just did terrible. And I have to look at you in the eye and tell you, thank you for spending money on me. You know what I mean?
That's always painful. That's painful. No, but we've all been there. I mean, that's happened to me plenty of times where it's like, hey, I'm going to try out some new jokes. And sometimes I've done a set, like a 5-minute set, and it kills at a show, and then you'll do that 5-minute set, and the audience just their sense of humor is different, and you can't like, obviously you leave and you're like, I'm not funny, I'm terrible, I'm horrible, I'm quitting, and it's like, all right, but then you're like, all right, I want to do this again.
Exactly.
It's
it's like golf. You get enough of those shots that make you come back,
Exactly.
And one last thing I'll say about that is I did the industry room. You've done the industry room, I'm assuming. And obviously I didn't get the residency, but I got a few spots, at Broadway. And I did the Red Room upstairs. I love that room. I've had my best shows in that room. And so I had he gave me 2 spots there, and then 2 spots in the basement, in the main room or whatever, but not the residency. And so I did that, and the Red Room, I'm crushing. I'm like, this is great. All the comics even are being friendlier to me because they're like, wow, this guy did really well. And then I go to the main room, the basement, and I do that same set. And it's I do the punchline, and it's and zing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And I'm just like, all right. And then you go to the next joke, and I'm like, all right, they're going to get this one for sure. And then it's like, blah, 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 blah. And then she said, I can't believe it. And I'm just like, oh, my God. He gave me 8 minutes tonight. And this is 40 seconds in.
It's tough.
Dude.
Oh.
And then, like, and it's also, they do the pro shows down there. So it's like, I had the host, the opener, who did 20 minutes, and it was hilarious. And then little Glenn comes up. Little Glenn, fresh off his bringer shows, and it was terrible. It was so heartbreaking, and I wanted to quit right there. In fact, I did quit right there for about 2 weeks. Bombing's hard. Bombing's hard.
Just gotta keep going. Just gotta keep going. No, I mean, sometimes I remember like the best advice I had to, because obviously open mics are like going to the gym. You know, you go to the, you know, that's your training and stuff like that. And like when I first I was doing stand up for a couple of years, like 5 or 6 years. And then I joined the Army, so obviously I took time off. And then when I got back into it, you know, I did an open mic and nobody laughed. And like most people weren't paying attention. I was like, oh man, it got to me. And this one comic was like, hey man, you cannot bomb at an open mic. Like, you're just performing for other comics. Like, most of them, nobody's listening to you. They're all focusing on their set. I'm like, all right, that makes sense. He's like, you just get working on your timing and working on your delivery and stuff like that. He's like, you're in the gym right now. So I was like, that's a great point. It's a great point. It's just, you don't want to bomb at the real show where there's actual guests who paid to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really good at bombing at all in all scenarios, but it is part of it. It toughens you up. It's a little bit. Like, I'm still not tough. I still hate it, and I have this desire to be liked, and it just I really struggle with it. But the one thing I was going to say,
I think everybody has that. Nobody wants to be up there and be like hated. No one wants to be hated.
Exactly, yeah. But I like the gym analogy. The only thing is, the gym is even better because you can put your headphones in, and no one can see the weight you're putting on the machine. You know what I mean? At the open mic, it's like, watch me curl 5 pounds in each hand. You know what I mean?
And
they're
struggle.
just like, and struggle. And struggle, man.
Yeah.
Well, David, I could continue talking to you for a very long time, man. This has been great. I have a couple quick rapid fire questions I want to ask you, and then we can get out of here. But please come back sometime. Let's do some comedy soon. I'm back in the scene. I'm off the cane. I'm off the crutches. So hopefully I'll see you around.
Yes, brother.
But let's go with this. I have a few questions. We're just gonna do quick rapid fire. Quick answers.
How quick it'll be, but we'll see.
It doesn't need to be super quick, but, you know, let's try to keep it under like 20 seconds, 15 seconds each answer.
Perfect.
And I'll add a sound effect here. Timer. No, I won't. Can't afford that. But a few questions. Some of these are random. Some of these are NY related. But let's start with this. You like TV. You like funny shows. Are you an Office guy or a Parks and Rec guy?
I'm going to explain this one. First started out as The Office, then I got introduced to Parks and Rec. If I had to choose one or the other, I would go Parks and Rec right now.
Okay, why is that? I actually want to hear this.
I love the characters. They're all so different. I love The Office. But Parks and Rec, the characters are so ridiculous, and they do, you know, they're so specific. They all have their very, very specific character traits. They all, like, contrast each other and stuff. So I love that. I love Chris Pratt as Andy Dwyer is probably my favorite TV character of all time.
Great.
And sometimes people have compared me to him, and it's the biggest compliment in the world. So I'm, to Andy Dwyer, and I'm like just a, 30-year-old with just a kid's mindset. It's never letting that get away. So yeah, I love Chris Pratt, and great show. Love Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I think they're both great. I love them both, but Michael Scott is my spirit animal, and so I will forever be loyal to The Office.
Quick side, I don't want to interrupt the rapid fire, but when I was in training, I have a video. I recreated the Michael Scott Survivor Man episode where he's like in the woods. He's like, the sun is in the 2/3 quadrant, which would make it about 3 o'clock or whatever he says. So I was in the woods, we were doing a 3-week training in the woods, and I recreated that and put it on. Look, I had my phone, I recorded it. So
is that on your YouTube channel?
Trying to make myself laugh out there.
Oh yeah. And that's on your YouTube channel. We can all watch
that. That is on my private phone. That is on my. That's for me. Maybe I'll upload it.
Yeah, I just love when he's in. I just love Michael Scott when he's in New York. He's like, I got this gem no one really knows about. Come over here. It's called Times Square.
Oh, Sabaro, yeah. He's like,
It's like, great.
I got myself a New York slice.
Yeah. So let's see. Okay, how about this? It doesn't look rapid fire, whatever fire. It's just me trying to ask as many questions before we run out of time. Do you have a worst bombing story or heckler story from your shows?
Oh, worst bombing story or worst heckler story. Honestly, I'm very lucky that nobody's ever been like, you suck, nothing ever like that.
I'm coming to your next show, and I'm going to
Yeah,
plan.
please. I need to get tested. I feel like that's a rite of passage. I've definitely had jokes that have not hit.
Was there a joke you really thought was going to go well and it just didn't, and now you don't use it?
I think last night I tried a joke about two jokes about doctors like getting a second opinion. I think it's funny how like you go to a medical professional, someone who spent years in school, and then you're like, all right, I'm gonna get a second opinion. Getting a second opinion is like, hey, I know you went to school for 15 years, but I don't like what you just said about my disease. But I guess I just got to work on the timing and the delivery of it. And then the other part of the joke was how I think it's cool that we don't need both our kidneys. It's like we have a spare tire. You can donate one, you can sell it on the black market, but you don't need both. And kind of the concept of like how doctors found out. It's just like they probably did surgery and they were like, all right, this guy's going to die. We're going to take his kidney out. And then he woke up like, oh my God, we don't need two kidneys. So both of them did not do well.
Those are really good premises. Those are really good premises.
They got legs. I just don't know how to word it properly. And that's the fun of stand-up is like, hey, to take a joke that didn't do well, and then if you can make it end up doing well, that's the fun of it. So I like those concepts too, but I just gotta make it fun for everybody.
I like the ideas. I'd say keep working on it, and people listening, Mom, you're getting an idea of how jokes start and where they end up. But it's funny. The other thing I want to mention because you just said this, the first joke you said, I have one I'm working on that's so similar.
Okay,
but it goes to show. I mean, I haven't heard your sets in months, so I didn't. People think. Non-comedians think like, oh, they're stealing material. It's like, no, there's only so many topics on Earth, and there's millions of comedians now. So we're gonna like have some crossover, and we're both, So I have a joke about like the weather. It's a great premise.
I like it. I like it already.
You heard of this? The weather? Huh? You guys hear about this? The weather? That's how it starts. No. But it's just like, because it happened the other day when someone was like, yeah, it's like 60 degrees out, but it feels like 43. And I'm like, the meteorologist says it's 60 degrees out. Who the hell are we asking the feels like temperature to? You know what I mean? So it's like the same. It's just, you're gaslighting the meteorologist that went to school for this, did all this work, and is like, this is what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah,
I just want to know
it feels like that's all interpretation. That's like, hey, what color is this? And like my shade of blue might be different from your. This shade of purple might be different to your shade of purple.
But it's like, I mean, it's just like a guy could go to school for this, and then you're just going to ask this guy standing outside, what's it feel like out there?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll work on these, and we'll come back and we'll see how they go.
This is the homework.
These guys are back on my roof. I really want to show. I'm just going to take a video on my phone without getting in the app, just so you can see that this is real. Now there's two guys. I think they're filming a rap music video. Either that or they're getting ready to murder me. Well, David, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Any last words? Any shows coming up that you have? Any comedy festivals you might be in that you want to plug? Go ahead and take this time to do that.
Next week, March 5th, I'm in the Laughing Buddha Comedy Festival at 7 p.m. at St. Mark's Comedy Club. So that's my next show. And then in July 22nd, I have my I guess kind of audition for the comic strip. It's I did the lottery and I got the date of July 22nd to audition for the comic strip.
All right, sweet.
Yeah, 2 opportunities.
And one more time, your Instagram and your YouTube.
David_Carlone is my Instagram, and then Forever Carlone is my YouTube.
Awesome.
Where I paint my full sets and stuff.
Amazing. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah,
of course. All right, folks. Well, thanks again for listening to episode 2 of Glen Tyler TV. Until next time, have a nice day and keep smiling.